Good evening, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to PatFacts. Hey, Bonnie, welcome. Good to see you. How's life going? How's life working for you? Does life work? What are your best practices? We're going to talk about those tonight on PatFacts. Again, welcome. Patrick here, Pat on Your Back, Personal Fitness. And I want to talk about what our pal Todd Durkin calls our When Life Works list, or more commonly known as our best practices. What are the things you do that, in sort of his naming of it, when life works, when life is going well, when things are working great for you, what are you doing? What are the secrets? What are the things you're putting in place? What are the routines you have in play that are helping you have the success that you're having, the good feelings that you're having, getting the results you want on your as you work towards your goals? And I thought, with it being December 1st, happy December 1st, everybody. Last month of the year, we've already been talking about starting our new year off right, getting our resolutions set, getting our plan in place for those so that we hit the ground running December 1st. We're just a month away, a month from today. It's 2022. We want to keep things moving along. So I thought it was a great time to kind of check in with our best practices and hopefully remind ourselves of them. So that if we're maybe struggling a little bit, having some difficulties getting going, maybe we've sort of fallen off that horse a little bit as far as our goals and our routines, then again, we can work on getting back towards it. I also wanted to touch on this because unfortunately, we're still midst of a pandemic. Yes, the positivity pandemic will always be here, and that's one that's going to spread around, and it's going to stick with us forever because we're going to be the ones controlling it. It's that other one that we don't want to really talk about too much. It's still sticking around, and it's kind of trying to linger a little bit. So there's different, as always, different reports and studies and things coming up. So what I want you to think of is your best practices for yourself, taking care of yourself. As we talked about before, here we want to take control of our health as best we can and control what we can control. And then that way we can not have to rely so much on other entities, healthcare, government, and all these other things. If we really take good care of ourselves, we kind of reduce the risk of that. We minimize that at least. And hopefully, if something were to happen and we get COVID or a cold even, or any other kind of virus, the severity is less because we've prepared our body, and it can heal itself better. If you watch sports at all, if an athlete gets injured, they usually give a timeline. They'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. They'll be out 8 to 10 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is. Typically, athletes come back sooner because their body is so in tune and so efficient and so good at healing and recovery because they practice it, that they can usually heal and recover faster than what a typical person would for that type of injury, whatever it is. We want the same thing for you guys. If you happen to get injured, or if you happen to come down with something, we want it to be less severe for you and you recover from it quicker. So you have your why. I wanted to touch on those tonight. And again, we're heading into the end of the year. So again, another great time to check in. We like to do our checkpoints at beginning or end of the month with how things are going. So again, a good time to check in and reflect. So what I'd like you to do is think of those best practices. Hopefully you're in them now and life's working for you and it's going well. But if not, think back to those times when it was going really, really well. What were you doing? What types of things were you involved in? How was your nighttime routine? How was your nutrition? Look at some of those areas and really reflect on them. Make note of them. Acknowledge yourself for having those good practices in place. And then now look at ways to bring those practices back in to get you back to that when life works kind of time. So you're feeling good about yourself. You're having confidence. You're having good energy, good enthusiasm to put towards what it is you're working towards in your goals. So just a few areas to really focus on. The first one we're going to talk about, we've kind of touched on it a little bit already, is your health. We really want you to think of when life's, what are your best practices for your health. Think of a time when you were feeling really good, you had good health, you had good energy, maybe your nutrition was going really well. There's so many components to health. We could break all of them down and take a look at each one. But I want you to think of all the different kind of components into one for now. We'll consider health sort of one thing. What were some of your best practices? What was your sleep routine like? How was your eating habits? How was your exercise and or physical activity habits? Um, Look at some of those moments. What were you doing? Maybe you're working out first thing in the morning. Maybe it was late at night. Maybe you split your workouts into a few times during the day, and that worked for you. Again, there's lots of different ways to look at it and go about it. We're going to find what's working best for you at that moment, and hopefully some of that will relate to now. It won't always, but hopefully some of it will cross over for you, and you'll see that success. Again, maybe some tweaking could be involved, but health is a big one. If we don't have health, we don't have anything. So we want to have that health. We want to look after ourselves. Again, hopefully minimize risks of anything. And if we take care of ourselves, if we're really dialing in our self-care and our health, then hopefully we're not stressing out about maybe some of the things that are out there that we can maybe come under, contract, viruses and flus and colds and different things. If we know we're taking really good care of ourselves, that can maybe lessen our stress about that. And if we're less stressed, again, that's less, more or less likely to come under that, because our immune system can take care of itself. We're not in that red zone that we talk about all the time. We can look after ourselves and recover. Our body can regenerate. If we're always stressed and tense all the time, that influences that system. It can't repair ourselves like we need to every day if we're always in that high level of stress. So again, you can see, as always, how these systems are so intertwined. And again, we talked about health itself. We broke it down in a few different components there, but there are many other ones as well. What about your mental health? How was that as far as your health? We're going to look at that as a part of health, but also on its own. What's your stress level like? How was your self-esteem, your self-confidence? What are the things that maybe you did, if you're not doing now, when you felt really good about yourself, when your mental health was really strong and that system was really efficient? And that's what we wanted, the mental health system, just like cardio system, just like the muscular system. It's a system. We need to work it. We need to exercise it. We need to give it some time to recover and de-stress. And then we create those systems and those habits that keep us in that good zone. So again, think back to that mental health. When are some times when you felt super great? Maybe you're really kind of in that good optimal performance zone. You're not too stressed, not too calm, in that good mindset where you're getting things done, feeling good about yourself, being able to help others because you help yourself first. What are the things you were doing? And some of them will probably be similar between, say, your health and your mental health and other areas we may look at. A lot of these things will probably repeat, because again, we're very complex systems and everything is kind of interwoven, intertwined. So if we're taking care of our hydration and drinking our water, maybe getting our supplements in, our carnitine, if you're taking any supplements, if we're in tune with some of that, that's going to affect multiple components of our system. It's going to affect our mental health. It's going to affect our physical health. It could affect our stress and how our body and our digestive system work, what our body can do inside as processes at a cellular level. And that's just from staying hydrated. And again, thinking of brain fog and good sleep and not eating too much because we're staying hydrated. Again, all these things intertwine with each other. So don't be alarmed if a lot of your answers are the same. Just keep in mind that maybe it's not such an overwhelming list if the list is maybe 5 or 6 things, but you're going to influence all these different systems and all these different components. So we've got your health, mental health. We kind of separated from that a little bit just because it's often overlooked, and we want to give it a little bit of attention just to make sure it's really dialed in. This time of year can be kind of an ebbs and flow of mental health for a lot of people. You can be really happy and have a really good time, be really excited, or you can be really upset, really down this time of year, really stressed. And you could switch back and forth depending on the time of day, how close some of the holidays are getting, different plans, what's going on, cancellations and that sort of thing. You can really go through that kind of emotional roller coaster. So again, by dialing ourselves in, looking after ourselves first, then we can better handle some of these stresses and situations that may arise and be thrown our way. We can handle those better. So again, take some time. I kind of come back to is a little bit of work and time up front, but it's going to pay off long term for you because you'll be more aware of them. And the more aware you are of these best practices or your win life wins list, then again, you can notice maybe when you're falling away from some of these habits and what to get back to, or if things aren't maybe doing well, you can look and say, okay, where am I kind of struggling right now? My best practices are typically to get 8 hours sleep, say. I've only been getting 6. I'm down 2 hours of sleep a night lately because of whatever reason. So that could be part of the problem. And then we try to look at a solution. Can I get back to 8 hours of sleep, or do I have to change something else? Do I need to nap somewhere? Do I need to ensure that I'm at least staying within my REM cycle, that hour and a half different cycles that we go through to get a good quality of sleep, at least, even though the hours aren't as long as they typically are. Again, there's typically not a left-right approach or a black and white type of thing. And there's usually quite a bit of gray area, or some ways we can tinker with things and figure things out that make a best solution for us. We just have to, again, put in a little bit of work and do so. But the more we put in the work now and be aware of what works for us just as much as what doesn't work for us, then we can hopefully recognize when we're maybe slipping a little bit or going off track. And if we get off track, we can get ourselves back on track quickly. Because again, we know what we need to do. We know the way that we have to go. So you want to think of, again, your health overall, more of kind of a physical health, your mental health as well. And we want to think of your best practices at work. When work was going really well, again, it could be a different time of year for some of us, a different environment at work because of the time of year, actually, sorry. So when work goes really well, what were you doing? Again, we can't control everybody else. We can maybe try to influence or create an environment that maybe helps them kind of get back to where they were. But we can only really worry about ourselves. So when work was going well for you, what were you doing? What were the practices you were taking in? And again, bring some of those practices back if they're not there already, to again have that smooth kind of last 30 days or so of 2021 that are left. We want to make the most of them again to have that good momentum going into 2022. So another area there, look at relationships as well. When your relationships are going well, what was working for you? What were you doing? Where were you putting in the effort? Where were you? How were you showing up when you were having conversations with some of those people? Again, look at some of those best practices, and you may have to go back a little ways. We've been through a pandemic these last almost 2 years. Things have changed as far as socialization and different things. Isolations have happened, and lockdowns and curfews and all this. We may have to kind of go back a little bit. Even for some of us, just being active and social again, being with people in person. We have to sort of reintroduce ourselves to some of our social skills, how to interact with people in public, in a public setting, being in the same place, not being behind a camera. It's different being around people, and with things not really being 100% clear. Again, there's a lot of gray area. And how do you shake hands? Do you fist bump? Do you elbow bump? Do you just wave? How do you sit with people? How do you manage it? What are the numbers in this place? Do you have your proof of vaccination and all this and that? So there's lots to keep in mind. So things aren't going to be quite the same as they used to be. So again, maybe we have to go back pre-pandemic, and things hopefully were good then. And what was I doing then? And how were things? And doing as much of that as you can now. Again, sometimes we're limited by what's regulated around us right now. But as much as you can, as much as you can control, let's bring those good practices in so that we can get our best foot forward and make the most out of these situations and have a great, again, end of 2022. So relationships, work, mental health, physical health, those are the 4 main ones I wanted to touch on. Just again, encompassing kind of the last 30 days or so of the year and heading into next year. There's a lot of different components going on. We've talked about planning the year. We've talked about setting resolutions and goals already, and heading into that new year with momentum already building and growing for you. We want to set that up. So we want to keep those going. And again, I just felt this was a good chance to really dial things in. And if we can have these best practices going, those areas that we're watching for, they could be the areas that typically get a little neglected or overstretched and overworked a little bit during this time. Again, work, depending where you work and what your job is, there could be some stressful times. before maybe you get a little Christmas vacation, a little break. That build up before you go on leave, you're trying to get things done and everything tied up before you head out, can cause some stress and different anxiety and some feelings. Hey, Natty. Same thing, your relationships, friends, family. You're going to be around some of them. Maybe you haven't seen some of them in a couple of years. It might be a little awkward. It might be a little different. Maybe you've changed and grown up a bit and matured a little bit, or have at least just evolved. Ascend to the end. We say we're always getting better and changing. Maybe you both have been through that. So there might be a little bit of catch up and a little bit of interaction to kind of see where those people are and kind of get on the same page again. You may have to work through that a little bit. And again, Christmas time, schedules, and trying to get everybody together and figure things out and figure out gifts or anything like that, or trying to kind of see everybody and get things in. It can cause a lot of stress and strain on people. So we want to make sure those relationships are good and you're putting that best foot forward, those best practices to kind of get the most out of that. And thinking again, physical health, we want to be sure that we're getting our workouts in, because if we're going to these family events or dinners, there's going to be snacks and food and different things, treats and stuff out there. You can't always control what's available for you to take in. You just have to make the best choices, like we've talked about here a couple of weeks ago when we talked about our scheduling and having a plan for the holidays of our routine. We just want to make the best choice possible. But there's going to be some food. There's going to be maybe some late nights where you're maybe eating late or out with some friends at an event, and maybe that's going to throw off your sleep routine a little bit. So the more we can look at some of that and have our best practices dialed in leading up to that event, chances are we'll keep them going after the event. And again, they won't have maybe the effect on us as if we kind of slack on them leading up to the event. We're already kind of creating that negative momentum or that little bit of that debt as far as energy and rest goes. So then we have a bigger hole to dig ourselves out of. If we can keep ourselves kind of treading water or above ground leading into it, then again, it's just a little bit of a hiccup we have to deal with and work through. So again, take some time now, look through, plan the rest of your month out. Hopefully you have been already, because we've been talking about planning the rest of our year since October. But if not, it's okay. Take a pen and paper and just plan out the rest of the month. Look at your appointments. You're trying to maybe get some things in for the end of the year. You're going to do Christmas shopping. You want to see people. You want to visit. You have work gatherings. You have family gatherings. Maybe you have to travel to get to some of these places. Try to lay some of this out and make a plan for it. And then as you look at your schedule and see what's there, try not to be overwhelmed by it. We don't want to cause that. But try to look at it and formulate a plan. And again, this is part of that plan. What are my best practices? When I perform at my best, what was I doing? And then try to get back into those routines as best you can. And that will help you manage some of what's to come in the next, again, 30 or so days that are left in 2021. Then again, that builds positive momentum. That keeps us going towards the new year and keep us kind of going forward. So what we want to do is, again, plan. So what we're trying to work on is have that plan, that structure, that routine, so we can get the most out of the rest of this year. And then again, this is a practice we can come back to every so often. And like I mentioned, you're more aware of it, so you can kind of revisit it yourself. Or maybe you plan it every so often when you do maybe a check-in as far as your goals and your progress. What are you working towards? Maybe there's a check-in of best practices. Am I still following these? Am I still doing them? Have I picked up new ones? Have maybe some that were best practices before, maybe not best practices now. Maybe they don't work for me the way they used to then, but maybe I can modify or tweak or take some of that good practice and change it to the way things are now to make it work for me. But the more we're aware of them, we've talked about mindfulness here before. If we're more mindful of what works for us, we can keep those systems in place and again, modify as we need to help us continue to grow and ascend and move forward. So that was really the basic message for tonight. Just a quick one this evening. Wanted to just to remind you again, with everything going on pandemic-wise and it's sort of potentially ramping back up, want to really reiterate best practices, including all those physical, mental health, even relationships and work. There's going to be different things going on right now. So you want to have those best practices in place. If nothing else, just to better help help us better manage what's going on for us. And leading into the end of 2021, we've talked about again our planning and our goals and our theme words for 2022. We've already started our plan. Hopefully we've talked about it again since October. So hopefully we're working into that. And these best practices will help us again manage the holiday situations and keep us on the right path, hopefully, so that again we can keep that momentum heading toward 2022 on the positive side, because we can build that negative momentum just as easy. So again, take a few minutes tonight to think back. Just think, reflect. If you journal, maybe look back into your journal when things were going really well, when you're at that really good place and all the cogs on the wheel were all kind of really good. Everything was kind of working really well for you. And again, look at some of those things you were doing. If you don't journal, maybe a good time to start as you reflect on what maybe some of your best practices were. And they might not all be at the same time either. You may look back and think, you know what, my fitness practices really dialed in back a couple of years ago, or maybe they're really good now. But you know what, my sleep habits were really good a few years ago when I was working and had more of a routine and a schedule before the pandemic hit. So you may have to look for nutrition here and sleep from this time and exercise from this time. That's okay. We want to, again, take those experiences and bring them all together to mold a system for us. So don't feel stressed if there isn't just one moment in time where you think everything worked good. Again, these components may come from different parts of your life, different time frames, and that's okay. We've talked before about how different experiences prepare us and shape us for what we are right now. So that's okay as well. So take a few minutes, brainstorm on those, think back to them. Again, maybe talk to people if you're not sure, if you can't think of any, or you kind of get stuck. Maybe think of people you used to interact with or have been around, some good friends, family, coworkers, people you spend some time with, and maybe see if they know notice some of your best practices. Because typically we're our own worst critic. So if you're having trouble with it, again, look outside of yourself to get some of that feedback. If you have a coach, again, a great time to touch base with your coach and look at some of those, because they've probably been keeping track and you've probably talked about them with your coach. But again, a great place to revisit as well. And if you don't have any, again, you can visit with a coach to get some in a consultation, a discussion, as we're leading up to working together, even if we haven't worked together already, as we discuss what's likes and dislikes and interests and goals. We can probably come up with a few best practice lists and think of some things that you're doing that are good practices for you just in conversation. So maybe now leading into the holidays, maybe now's the time to get that coach and get yourself set up, get that wellness coach, that life coach that's going to help you take things to that next level. If that's where you are, please feel free to reach out. I'd love the chance to work with you and help you evolve and grow and take your life to that next step of being operationally fit. So have a great night, everyone. Thanks again for being here. Appreciate you tuning in and support. I'd love to hear from you, those best practices, if you have some. Again, if we can share with each other, we don't just make the team, we make the team better. So maybe you spark an idea in someone, or maybe they have just a kind of an epiphany where they, oh yeah, I do that. That I didn't think of that, but I do something like that. That might spark that reminder for them as well. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Even again, if you're on the recording, that's okay. We still see all the comments. We still interact with them as well. Your best practices, things that work good for you, or if you're discovering some now, same thing. We'd still love to hear from you if you're comfortable to share them. Remember, gang, keep that self-care so high. It's still so important. Take care of yourselves, get your rest, take care of your hydration, your sleep, physical, get active, keep yourself moving. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Remember, always make yourself the priority that you deserve to be by striving to be operationally fit. Have a great night, guys.